Stay tuned for the Joan Quinn Profiles. As an editor for Andy Warhol's Interview, the Los Angeles Herald-Examiner, LA Style, and Detour magazines, Joan covered the social set, the Hollywood hotshots, the international art scene, the mysteries of food, the excitement of travel, and the fabulous world of fashion. Joan continues to find creative people on the cutting edge who make things happen. Here's Joan Agajanian Quinn.
Hi, I am Joan Quinn, and welcome to the Joan Quinn Profiles. Waiting to be profiled are actress Susan Sullivan and director-producer Jyll Johnstone. Two-time Emmy and Golden Globe nominee Susan Sullivan was born and raised in New York. Her big break came when she starred opposite Dustin Hoffman in Jimmy Shine on Broadway. She's continued her work in the theater while appearing on TV's Falcon Crest, Dharma and Greg, The George Carlin Show, It's a Living, among other things. But Susan, is it true that you put yourself through Hofstra University as a bunny at the Playboy Club?
No, it's no, but I was there. I
It's not
actually
true.
went there. I should hold on to that story. It sounds good, doesn't it? This is the story. I went through Hofstra University on a scholarship, and I want to always honor them because that was very important for me at the time. I always worked. When I was a little kid, I sold tomatoes from door to door. I was a constant worker because I came from a very poor family. I'm going to give you my sad story now, Joan.
I like tomatoes.
Well, I will be at your door. At any rate, I went one summer. I was modeling in New York, just a little showroom modeling, and there was a big ad in the New York Times looking for Playboy bunnies. They were opening the club up in New York, and I thought, now, I will now show you. I am not a busty gal. I went from the showroom. I borrowed a dress. I put all this padding in. I went over to the club and I was interviewed. And just because I wanted to see, Playboy magazine was sort of the erotica of the 50s when I was growing up. So I went into the Playboy Club and I went up. You had to be interviewed by the bunny mother. I went up to the bunny mother. And she said, well, you're just what we're looking for. I said, you know what, I don't want her to know that. I said, listen, I don't think this will probably work out because I'm actually in college and I'm just here. She said, that's all right. Well, we can work. You can work on the weekends. You can work. I said, but I'm on a scholarship, so I act on the weekends, and I don't think She said, no. Doesn't matter. We'll work around your schedule. This is what we're looking for. We're looking for college girls. Oh. We want to be sure that these girls are beyond reproach. We want them to be bright and attractive and erudite. And I went, what? The Playboy Club? Okay, anyway, make a long story even longer. I went downstairs to try the outfit on, and I went, this is going to be very embarrassing because I really... They said, are you kidding? Please, we'll push from here, we'll push from there, we'll get you around here.
Were really? They wanted you.
Yes. So that, it was actually very interesting, I must say. So I worked now and then.
Oh, you did actually?
I actually worked now and then at my... convenience.
You blew my interview.
I know, Joan.
Because I was going to say, would you now be going to Hooters and would you be working at Hooters?
I don't think so. I don't think Hooters would make the adjustment.
And then my next question was going to be, was all that experience at Hooters? No, you didn't go there. But the Playboy Club, was it helpful in your acting?
You know, one of the joys of being an actor is that life is your sketchboard. Mm-hmm. Everybody you meet offers you something. You always have the opportunity to learn who you are by observing the world around you, by art, by music, by literature. So all of it fed my well.
It did help.
Yeah.
So, but you weren't first on Broadway. You were in the Cleveland Playhouse.
That's where I went. I went to school on Long Island, which is where Hofstra is, and then I went to the Cleveland Playhouse, and then I came to New York. And the first play that I got was Jimmy Shine with Dustin Hoffman.
How did that happen?
I went and auditioned and
I was so good.
Got the part.
Did you have to sell tomatoes on Broadway?
No, the tomatoes were. I grew out of the tomatoes.
But that was so wonderful for you to do that. I mean, to go on stage right away. Were you so excited or impressed? Or
it's always what I wanted to do, Joan. It was very clear from when I was a little girl. It was. I think it's part of my DNA. It's certainly, I have actors in my family.
Oh, you
history.
do?
Yes.
I wondered about your background.
And I also came out of a kind of chaotic home life. My father was a very brilliant, interesting man, but he had a drinking issue, as a lot of actors' families seem to do. And there was a lot of chaos in that home. And I always felt that if you could construct an environment that was orchestrated so that you could control some of that anger that seemed to be burbling underneath.
It's interesting how, as a child, you do that.
I think you do.
You do that for yourself. It's like a protection, or it's like something.
Control.
But control. What brought you to Hollywood? Because you were acting a lot on the stage.
I was acting in New York. I was acting on the stage. I was doing a soap.
Right. You were doing a soap.
Another World.
That's
Actually,
right.
an agent came to see me in a play that I was doing and said, I'll handle you, but you have to leave the soap and you have to go to California, you have to try a career there. And I went, oh my God, how scary. And I happened to be dating the producer of the soap, and I said to him, I want to try this. Could I go with a caveat that if it doesn't work out, I could come back?
Oh, good idea.
And he said, yeah.
Oh, good.
So I went for 3 weeks. And
oh, you went for 3 weeks?
I went for 3 weeks, and I thought if I make it in 3 weeks, if I have a career in 3 weeks, I'll stay. If I don't, I'll go back on the soap.
Wow.
I was very security oriented. You do
Really?
remember the tomato. So at any
Really?
rate, I came out and I got a job, and then I got another, and
so there you were.
there I was.
And you acted a lot on the East Coast, but you've actually been at the Taper and Pasadena Playhouse and a lot of plays here in Los Angeles. And how did that compare to the theater in New York?
Well, what I was doing out here, Joan, basically was making a very good living. Doing television. I mean, I was on Falcon Crest for 9 years. I was on Dharma and Greg for 5, so that I was able to have a lovely home and
experiment on the theater or enjoy the theater?
both.
Both.
Both. But now, because there is less opportunity as you get older, now the theater seems to offer more opportunity. I just came back from playing one of your gals, Katharine Graham, in the Pentagon Papers, which we took out through LA Theater Works.
Oh, you went on...
I went on tour with that, which was absolutely fascinating.
Where did they go?
They went mainly to universities, University of Pennsylvania, Stanford. They went to New York. Ben Bradley came, all the people that were involved, Daniel Ellsberg in the original.
Was that her book? Was that about her life?
Well, Katharine Graham, of course, wrote her brilliant biography.
Right.
But no, this was simply about the Pentagon Papers.
Oh, it was about
Daniel
the papers.
Ellsberg and the releasing of the Pentagon Papers and the First Amendment issues that surrounded that. So I'm actually having a very, very interesting time in my life. And this new play, An Act of Love.
Yes, I was going to say.
We're holding up the poster.
Yes, we're holding up this, but the reason we're moving into the theater, because you've been on a lot of stages here, and this is at the Falcon in Burbank.
A great,
Riverside
wonderful
Drive.
little theater, Riverside Drive in Toluca Lake.
And this
It's
theater was
delightful.
founded by...
Gary Marshall. God
Who is
bless
so
him.
wonderful.
Yeah, yeah. Now his theater is indeed an act of love.
Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah, it is sweet. It is sweet, and it's true. And this play, written by Daniel Ellsberg, and written by David Landsberg, is also an act of love. It's a very, very sweet piece.
Have you worked with David Landsberg before?
No.
He's done a lot of TV writing,
Yes,
right? And
yes, and a lot of sitcoms.
It's a dysfunctional family.
Dysfunctional family. I play a narcissistic mother.
Comedy.
Comedy.
It is.
Yeah.
Have you done comedy before?
Yes. I think it's my strong suit, if I can be so bold.
Really? But isn't
why?
comedy different with the timing? I mean, it
You
seems
know,
like...
it's a gift. Either you have comic timing or you don't. So there.
So there. So you can do what David Landsberg has written.
That's right.
So
That's right.
And also,
I'm enough of a narcissist myself,
Oh,
Joan.
please.
I know. I mean, we all are to varying degrees, so that I can understand and empathize. I don't think you can play a character that you don't sort of
I
have
wonder-
within your own
to reach for.
ken, as they say in the theater, so that you understand her dynamics. And you know, I think what happens to women Joan, forgive me for taking over
Go
your show.
on,
I have a couple of
no.
questions I want to ask you.
Oh, not me. No, but this is true about it's written by a man, but it's about a woman. That's what I was thinking was interesting. Your character.
Well, I think he's really, to some degree, writing about his own mother.
Oh, so that's how we can get it.
And I think also, I know with my father, for example, I don't think my father ever really, I think he was a creative person and a passionate person who never found an outlet for his gifts. I think that's a very sad thing. And this character, she had a real talent, and she never found an outlet for it.
Hold this up.
Yeah, there she is.
She's in red.
That's me.
That's you in red.
With the bandana, with my 2 dysfunctional children.
And the thing about this, we were talking about, it's written by a man, but it's directed by a woman.
Casey Stengel, God love her.
Is she great?
She's good. She's very good. It's a lovely cast. It's funny. We've gotten good reviews. We're having a good time.
Do you think
life is good?
Do you think that her directing as a woman, she brings different things to it than what he had in mind? Than the playwright? Well,
the playwright directed it first when we did an original reading. So it's very interesting that you bring this up. And he so loved it. He loved his play. He loved what he had written, and he didn't want to change anything. And he loved what everybody was doing, and he laughed at everybody. This is not a good thing.
Well, that's
why you need to have somebody come in and say, no, we need to chisel this a little. We need to sculpt it. We need to mold it and refine it.
But that's what I always say when you do a one-woman play. I go like, oh, you're doing a one-person play. Why do you need a director? And they go, well, just what you're saying.
Yeah.
It's a different point of view, right?
Yeah,
A different,
it is.
A different
Theater is a collaboration, basically, when it's at its best.
And we talked a lot about theater here. You are a member of the Matrix and the Antaeus group. Mm-hmm. And what do you do as a member of?
Well, the Antaeus is a classical company.
Theater company,
and they
right?
do. I did Tonight at 8:30. They did all those Noel Coward.
I see.
Little plays, and they're now working on a presentation of either Shakespeare or Shaw. So that's a classical
so
group.
Does
the
that
Matrix
keep
is
you,
more contemporary.
Does that keep you alert being a member?
It keeps me oiled.
Does it? Is that what they say?
Oiled.
And the Matrix
and alive.
is contemporary, so they use more contemporary writers?
I did a play called Honor with them a couple of years ago. And they don't produce as much as the Antaeus Theater Company does.
But it's interesting.
And LA Theater Works is interesting.
Yes.
Have you ever had them on?
Are they downtown?
They are. They do work at the Skirball Center, and they do radio plays.
They do radio plays,
which is very interesting,
yes.
too.
Yes, they have a lot of...
Isn't this a great city, Joan?
It is.
It's fabulous. We're so blessed.
I'm so glad you said that, because I'm the one who's always pushing LA and having theater people on, because I think we have a wealth of knowledge and a wealth of what?
Gifted
people.
Gifted, smart people who are
some.
generous of nature and want to share themselves.
And so we should all go
And we should get all these old people on too, because there's wisdom and there's energy and it's inspiring to see somebody older than myself.
Oh, I totally agree. And we'll all go see An Act of Love.
Oh,
thanks,
okay.
Susan.
Thank you, Joan.
And thanks for watching this part of the show. We'll be right back with director, filmmaker Jyll Johnstone. Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and welcome back to the Joan Quinn Profiles. I'm with filmmaker Jill Johnstone, who went to school on the East Coast and actually started her career in show business as an actor. She's produced and directed several films, including Hats Off, which has tatain the life of its own. It's taken a life of its own, hasn't it, Jill?
Thank
and it's
goodness.
gone on for everyone to see. And it's about this 90-year-old person and Mimi Wedel.
Mimi Wedel.
Okay, and she's in her 90s. And how did you decide to use her as a character?
I have known her since I was a little girl because her daughter Sarah, who's also in the film, went to school with me. And so I knew Mimi from a young age, but I didn't really get to know her because she was always working. So it wasn't until I became an actress in my late 20s, early 30s that I finally got to spend a little bit more time with Mimi.
Where did you go to school?
I went to Hewitt's.
Hewitt's, and then after that?
I went to Bard and graduated NYU in journalism, actually.
Oh, I was going to say, did you go to the film school?
No.
Because Bard has a great theater. Frank Gehry built that new theater. Have you been up there to see it?
It's incredible.
Is it great?
It's a cool place.
So you were always going to be an actress. You weren't going to be a filmmaker.
No. I was going to be a journalist. That's what I really wanted to be.
Oh, you really were?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
I worked, and that was the feminist time. That was the early 70s. And so I worked for a different Majority Report, which is a small feminist newspaper. And then I was working for Danskin in an office setting, and there was a friend, a new person came in that we became friends with. She was a comedian, and she was so funny. She made life working at Danskin so much fun that I just decided, I want to be an actress.
Is that how you decided?
Yes.
Instead of a journalist?
Yeah, I want to be an actress, so I started taking classes.
And did you just pick a class, or did you have to audition to go to acting school? Or
I studied with a real horrible man named Paul Mann, who we all took to court for sexual abuse. That was my first encounter with acting teachers.
Oh my gosh, I bet. I mean, here you are, you want to be an actress, and this is what you've gotten yourself into. Were you like freaked out?
It was really difficult because at that time, not that many young women were saying negative things about anybody.
Anybody, they could get away with anything.
It was a very difficult time, but but the whole class, quite a large majority went, and we went to court, and it was a huge deal because he was much older. He was in his 70s at the time. We were all in our 20s.
Did that help your acting?
Yes. And then I studied with Kim Stanley, who was so fantastic.
Oh, so you really went to a good place after that.
She was fantastic. But then, I always wanted to be in the movies, and I never got the parts. I never got the roles, and I was very, very frustrated. I do TV, I do commercials, I do off-Broadway, but...
but you didn't do movies.
No, I did extra work in movies, but I never got in front of the camera.
Well, but don't you think that's because you were in New York? It was more difficult to do that?
Yes, but there was a lot of people that I knew that, kind of made it out to California. And
you were waiting to come out, you thought?
I was. I really was.
I see.
So you're always waiting for the phone to ring, especially when you're a new actor, and I didn't like that.
Well, then... you decided to be a filmmaker. And what were the subjects of some of your films? Were they documentaries? All of them?
I've made 3 documentaries. They're all about women over 85 who are still in the workforce.
Is that right?
Yeah. The first one was autobiographical, called Martha and Ethel.
And who's that?
Well, Martha is my nanny. She was my nanny. She lived with my family for over 30 years. And I hated her. Absolutely hated her.
The whole time?
Until I made the film.
Until you made the film.
I made the film because I thought it would be a small little film. I had a lot of ambivalence about being a mother. I had just gotten married. I just couldn't figure it all out, and so I put the camera on Martha and really tried to figure her out. And then it turned out that another friend of mine, Barbara Ettinger, had a nanny named Ethel, who was the most amazing woman.
Oh.
She was a fantastic woman, a black woman from the South, never had baby training like Martha. No training, and yet she was the most incredible woman. And so we made the story about the 2 women.
Was that like a film project, or was it actually a commercial that you wanted to make it as a filmmaker? It wasn't like something for film school.
No. This was a
regular...
this is a real doc, and we actually got into Sundance.
Oh, you did.
And then we got picked up by Sony Pictures.
And how long was the film to make? How long did you spend?
It took about 5 years.
See, you're like, I don't know how you have this patience. What was the next one?
The next one was Throwing Curves. And that was a story of Eva Zeisel, who is an industrial designer, who is a really interesting woman. It did not get a theatrical release. It is shown in museums and art schools and educational. She is now 101 and she's still working.
Oh my gosh. So how long did that take to make?
That took 5 years, but I did that. I started with Mimi, and then I read an article in the New York Times about Eva Zeisel, because Eva at the time was 93 and Mimi was only 83.
I know, and you're talking about all this long period of time it takes to make a documentary, and you're dealing with people at 85. Aren't you afraid your subject matter is going to disappear?
No, because because Eva was 93, so I was more worried about her than
I would
83.
think so.
So I went for Eva for 5 years, but then I live in San Francisco, so every time I came to New York to shoot Eva, I'd give Mimi a call. I'd say, Mimi, what's up? Are you auditioning? Are you doing anything? If she'd say yes, I'd go over there and follow her around.
I was going to ask you, you knew of her because of her daughter and going to school with her, but when did you decide that she would be a good subject for a documentary?
I think when I kept seeing her at all these casting calls, and there would be this room of old ladies. They were, they were just schlumpy kind of old character actors, and then there was Mimi, in her funky attire, usually wearing a hat, standing very erect, and looking very different than all of them.
And did she welcome you? As far as like filming her?
Well, first of all, nobody realized that it was going to be 11 years, for God's sakes.
I know.
And neither did Mimi. Mimi said, sure,
Oh,
come
she
over.
said sure?
No problem.
And then what kind of access did you have to her?
I had total access. I mean, really, if you ask her, what did she think of the film? She says, it's my life.
So when you would follow her around and you went to auditions with her, did they care that you came in with a camera?
No.
Oh, everything was
I mean,
okay.
not always. I mean, some people didn't like it, especially on movie sets. We weren't able to go on movie sets.
I see. So how much of that film, Hats Off, was choreographed to make it look like you wanted it to look?
Oh, well, the editing room is a room of magic.
The editing room does that. So it doesn't matter what you choreograph or what you tell her to do or how she does it.
Well, I didn't tell her to do anything. First of all, you can't tell Mimi to do anything.
Is that it?
She is so much her own person that she does what she needs to do, and it's her own truth.
So did you have to go back and do any pickup shots?
Well, after about the 9th year, my husband said to me, Jill, I think you've got to get this in the can. And I said, you're right, but we don't quite have it. And so I would have to go back. We went back, we did 1 or 2 more auditions, and also the last scene in the film where she's walking through Central Park, we filmed that very, very late on.
So you did work with your co-producer, Michael Arlen Davis.
And my husband.
He's your husband as well. What role did he have? How involved was he?
Well, he has nothing to do with the directing. He doesn't.
Nothing artistic?
Nothing at all. That's not his forte. He's a businessman, and he really helps me at the end. And he is working with the distributor, Richard Abramowitz, and he does the hard stuff that I can't do.
It took you 11 years to do this. Have you been married that long?
Yes.
And you stayed married through all these
And I
things?
had 2 children.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, I mean, I had a life also.
Yes,
You have to.
Well, 11 years. How was it formulating in your mind?
Well, what I like about making documentaries is that you just keep filming. And you'll look at what you filmed, and then you'll say, okay, this is good. And then you go on and you kind of go that pathway. Then something else that Mimi will do will stir you in a totally different direction. So I think it's only the last year of the editing, or last 2 years of editing, that we were able to get the sense of what the story was. I mean, I had an idea, of course, but there's also in the film the story of Mimi as a mother, and the fact that her daughter has lived with her for 20 years.
I know.
I mean, that's a whole other aspect of the film.
But that's such a funny relationship, because there's been stories in the New York Times and different newspapers, and you can see there's a tension just from reading the stories. I mean,
well, I thought that was a wacky story. I had no idea what that story was about, but if it got the people into the Quad Theater in New York, that was great. They have an unusual relationship, but they adore each other. I mean, if I lived with my mother, it wouldn't be easy.
No, that's
for
what
sure.
I mean. I think it's difficult.
It is
And she
difficult.
is an intelligent
Very
daughter,
intelligent
isn't
daughter,
she?
extremely
She's intelligent. So you didn't actually shape the film the way you wanted it to be. She kind of like wrote the story as it unfolded.
I think in the editing room, the editor and the director shaped the story.
And that's you.
Yes.
So,
well, I had two fantastic editors.
Do you have an outline? Do you have an outline?
No, I never work with outlines. No, because it's a documentary. You don't know what's going to happen.
Well, let me ask you one other thing, because the music's phenomenal. How'd you choose the music? That's a bizarre story too. Those people don't even live near you.
We lost our musician, and we called a friend out of the blue, Frankie Spellman, who lived in Florida, who I knew when he was a kid because he was playing in clubs all over West Palm Beach,
that's
Florida.
How you knew him.
And he was a good friend of a mutual friend, and she said to me, "Why don't you call Frankie?" And actually, that is one area that my husband did do a lot of work on, because I was actually living in Italy, and I was extremely busy with lots of other things. And Michael and Frankie worked together, because when Frankie first came on board, he thought, well, this is a film about a 93-year-old woman. I'll just do something. And it was awful.
Yeah, you said it was terrible.
Yeah.
And then you told him what it was, and he wrote this music you loved.
Yeah, the music is fantastic in the film. It really is. It carries the film.
And the other thing that I was wondering is, did you learn something from this film that you'll use in other films?
I learned so much on this film. I mean, one thing, I am afraid, or I was afraid of aging.
Oh, that's great.
I had a mom who was extremely elegant and beautiful and never told her age, and always told me, never tell your husband your age.
My mother too, same way.
It's that whole generation. And I was afraid to get old, as my mother was. I mean, she had, done work on herself and everything, and I was afraid.
And now you know that it's
and now
a part
I know
of
that
life.
it's part of life, and it's really okay, and it could be actually a lot of fun if you stay healthy.
Yeah, that's
If you have your health.
And everyone used to say, if you have your health, you've got everything. And we know that.
Now we know it.
Thank you, Jill.
Thank you, Joan.
Thank you.
It's great.
And keep writing. 777 South Figueroa, 44th floor, Los Angeles 90017. Email jaquinn1@aol.com.